this is Big Books Part 2. It's been a while, so I kind of wanted to update this channel. And I know I said I'd have some supplementary stuff for Celiphias coming up, but I will get to that. I have been doing, spending some of my free time researching various aspects of that story, where it comes from, how it ties into other works. But for right now, I'm just going to be doing this episode of Big Books. Here we go. The Birds of America. John James Audubon, with an introduction by David Sibley. So who are these guys? Well, you've probably heard of the Audubon Society, which was named after John James Audubon. This is his major accomplishment, was putting together this volume. Now, an original Audubon volume is actually the most expensive, or at least the book that is sold for the most in recent history. I'm sure there might be some other, well, there might not be some other books that are more valuable. If there are books that are more valuable, they're not the kind that would ever be sold. They're not the kind that would ever go on market. You know, they'd be like in Vatican City or something like that. You know, something that's just not going to go on eBay or anything, you know. But Audubon, his works are, if you can get his complete book, it's worth a lot. Now this, of course, is a new version. I saw this in Barnes & Noble, and actually, this is, I had to look it up, but this is actually by Barnes & Noble, so they are capable of making some gorgeous stuff. I don't know if you can see, but this is like, I don't know, it's, I can't even describe the material, but it's really nice. It's like dark blue, it's like midnight blue with gold, what do they call that again? Where they have the gold edges. And it's just a gorgeous production. Now I got this for, I think it was $50. It may have been $75, I don't remember, but I don't know what this is going for now, but I saw it and I was like, wow, this is so nice. Because you can go to Barnes & Noble nowadays, and if you don't know, if you're not from the US, Barnes & Noble is like the last surviving corporate book chain, but you can get Audubon books, but they aren't as nice as this. This is like a super nice version. So fortunately we're able to get this, and my brother-in-law, we also got him one because ironically he's into birding, into birds. A fellow traveler in the ways of ornithology. So, introduction, David Sibley. Who's Dave? Before I even get to Audubon, who's this guy who wrote this introduction? David Sibley. Well, this will be a later video, but here's perhaps the most popular field guide to bird watching for North America. The Sibley Guide to Birds. It's the first edition, flexi cover. I'll get back to that in another video, I'm sure. But yeah, so this guy's not a lightweight. This guy is pretty good, and so that just makes this whole production so much more incredible. Now on the cover here you have obviously a pelican. I'm pretty sure it's the white pelican, the great white pelican. Can tell mainly because of the, whatever you call that, the odd shape on the top half of its beak. And yeah, some here in Florida we do have great white pelicans, but they're pretty rare. If you go along the ocean or the Gulf, you'll see brown pelicans. Let's see, I should know the Latin for them. What are they? Pelicanensis, Pelicanus carolinensis. Yeah, and you see them a lot. They've really bounced back, but they were in trouble back in the 80s. But they've kind of we've kind of legislated getting, reducing various herbicides, insecticides, fertilizers, and stuff that have ended up killing off these birds. But the white pelican has not bounced back. It's still kind of hard to find, and it's kind of sad because you read things from Audubon's time, and you talk about how the skies were just filled with them. Giant birds, like amazing. Anyway, I'm getting off subject. So this is a big book, all right? It's not as big as Book of Palms, but it's pretty heavy. I mean, good thing I'm kind of a big guy and can kind of wield this a little better. Gorgeous production. And look, we just open right away. Kind of got a tasteful interior there, and then Birds of America and gorgeous script. Let's see how far am I? Yeah. So these, like I said, this book is, if you're actually to get the original from Audubon, incredibly expensive. Let's get forward. Most of this is art. I mean, that's what he was. His preferred mode of operation was he would get a specimen, and back then, during Audubon's time, which I believe was the very early 1800s, or maybe it's even the 1700s. I don't know. I'd have to. It's been so long since I've read about him. But his preferred mode of operation was to, shoot a specimen if possible, and then do taxidermy, and also insert wire hangers into the taxidermy body to then pose the bird so that he could then make paintings. So a lot of these, and sometimes you'll see really awkward poses of the birds, especially noticeable in the bigger birds, where he wants to fit the entire bird into a rectangular picture, but the bodies of it are so long that it doesn't really allow for that. Here's one of my favorite birds, actually. He calls it the swallow-tailed kite. It's the one on the top half here. Now, I think it's actually called the dove-tailed kite now, but you can see these, and they're easy to distinguish when you see them flying because of their tail. You see how it has a big fork here. Gorgeous bird. They actually aren't terribly uncommon. Let me see if I can find any good examples in here of what I'm talking about. Oh, that's some good ones. There's some good ones in here. Here's a guy I always see out my window. The one on the bottom here, the Louisiana heron, now renamed into the tricolored heron because of its coloration, blue, white, and kind of reddish brown. Very active, pretty bird, medium-sized wading bird, and yeah, you'll see them around. I get to see them outside my window. Now, a lot of the names have changed. During Audubon's time, it was the Louisiana heron, but it's been changed to the tricolored heron, like I said. Okay, here's a good example. This is he's calling it the whooping crane. The whooping crane is what we call it. It's this one on the left here. But see how it was actually a very tall bird, so the way he articulated it, he did it so the bird was going after the lizard. That way he could fit it all more easily onto one page to fill the page. And unfortunately, this bird is critically endangered. Because there's a bird that's similar to it that's not endangered, called the sandhill crane, hunters will often mistake whooping cranes for sandhill cranes. And I actually have a friend who's a prosecutor who prosecuted someone for killing a whooping crane. Really sad, though. They're really disappearing. They're the largest of the cranes here in the United States. That's another thing. You'll see endangered species in here. This is back, you know, Audubon never got to see a dodo bird. He got to see a stuffed one, I think. And here's our brown pelican over here. So you can see, quite easy to distinguish from the white pelican. Now, with brown pelicans, it's kind of interesting. If you're out on the west coast, there's actually you know, we have the Carolinensis here on the east coast, the subspecies, but they have a subspecies called, I think it's Californicus, I don't know, something like that, and it actually has an orange beak as opposed to the more just yellow, blandish beak of the eastern brown pelicans. But it is endangered out there on the west coast, so you won't see them very often. Let me just see if I can find a few other interesting things in here, so forgive me if I'm like looking around. I'm hoping I can find some of the extinct. Gotta show this one. You might recognize this if you look down the corner of your screen. Audubon's roseate spoonbill, aka Platalea ajaja. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous. Would love to have a print, full-size print of that. Oh, come on, where are you? I'm looking for one in particular. There's about two in particular I'm looking for. Both extinct. See if I can find them. We got time, right? Well, you can spend a lot of time looking at this stuff. Now, each one of these birds has the old name and the Latin name, of course. I've seen a lot of. Maybe I can flip it right this way. Let's look for it together. How about that? That probably makes it better. Dry-colored heron. Over here you have the. Well, they're calling this the wood ibis. This is actually a stork. It's called the wood stork now. And the Latin is also changed. It is not Tantalus loculetor. It is. I could remember it if you give me time, but we don't have time. So here's what's the whooping crane? Grus americana. These two whooping cranes, it's very interesting. I think this is actually the sandhill crane. I could be wrong, but this has the coloration of the sandhill crane. There actually is a third kind of crane called the common crane. But like I said, all these names are kind of antiquated. Here's an interesting one of. Okay, has to be a tern. He's calling it a cayenne tern. It could be a sandwich tern or royal. It doesn't look like a royal tern, but it has a crab there with it. These guys will sneak in sometimes with seagulls. You won't even, unless you know what you're looking for, you won't know that it's actually not a seagull and that it's actually a tern. Where's Bill? And there's the cover art. American white pelican, Pelicanus americanus. Beautiful. I don't know. Maybe I'm not going to find it. Ah, here we are. The great auk. Now, Now, this creature, it's the one on the bottom here. This species is extinct. It's called the Great Auk, A-U-K. Alca impennis. Alca impennis. And it was extinct too by Audubon's time. He had to settle for painting from someone else had a taxidermied body of one preserved, and so he had to paint this from it. He never got to see it. It's kind of sad, especially since it was the great version of its genus, of its family. It wasn't there's smaller versions that are still alive today, but the great auk is gone. So too the Carolina parakeet, which was another one I was looking for in there, but it's actually not that impressive compared to the great auk and the spoonbill and stuff. So yeah, this book is really amazing. I should check the price. I think I'm going to check the price, see what it's going for on eBay and stuff like that. I got this about 4 years ago, 3 or 4 years ago. Like I said, it was expensive back then. It was like $50 or $75 back then, so who knows what it's worth now, if it's hard to get. And you never know when some of these things are going to be worth a lot. Not that that matters. Wouldn't want to sell it to someone. They'd probably end up cutting it up and like framing some of them and ruining the book's value. You know, it's tempting to do that with these books. But yeah, there's a lot to say about Audubon. And you know, I started dabbling in his biography and his book of letters, but I never had enough time to explore them as much as I'd like to. I don't know if I'll ever get around to it, because my reading table is stacked to the ceiling with books. Like, even thinking about reading something like, a random idea, it's not going to happen. My vice, Diet Coke. So, yeah, I guess there'll be more to come. I'm running out of big books here, but this is a good one. Birds of America, John James Audubon. You can actually see his watercolor portrait or his painting portrait, I don't know, it might be oil painting, in the White House. So that's one of the things I've always wanted to see. So if I ever go to DC, I'll look for it. Well, that's all. And I'll see you again soon.